Hello, I'm Daniela. Today's video is a little unusual one in that I'm not going to show a process or a method. I'm just going to talk about ORTs, O-R-T. So that's just leftover thread. I call them threadlings. ORTs is a very cute and clever name as well. It's a name that refers to anything left over when you prepare a meal or eat a meal. So it's the leftovers, things that you don't need to complete the meal, things that may be extra from the meal, but it's little things, not enough to make a new meal out of them, but they can be incorporated into the next meal somehow. So stitchers of all types, weavers, anyone that has extra thread will save these. Now, not everybody saves those, and you don't have to save them either. But I found it very interesting when I first discovered that there's a whole movement of people who save their little threadlings. I started doing that in 2021, and the process is you keep an ORT jar, a little jar. It can be anything. This is just a repurposed ice cream container, and you just fill it with your leftover threads. It's very colorful and very beautiful. Now, through the year, whenever I have some extra thread that is not long enough to use in a project, I'll stick it in my little jar. Now, sometimes if I need just a few stitches and I want a particular color, I can rummage through my jars, so they are helpful. But they're really more of a memory. When I look back on this, all the projects I worked in that year, there's a little remnant of them. Now, this is not something I might want to keep forever, but it is something that is very meaningful to me. It really places value on the projects that I've worked on during that time period. Some people sort their ORTs by color and display them in like spice jars or jars throughout their home because the process of creating and sewing and stitching is very valuable to them in their lives. Now, I'm a big believer in celebrating what you find very valuable, and it doesn't have to be what your neighbor finds valuable. I like to keep little reminders of the things that I really spent my time with and really enjoyed in my home. And there might come a day when I no longer cherish those memories, or I say, why do I have a jar full of thread scraps? And I can get rid of it. But currently, this really works for me and it's very valuable. Now, if you want to keep your threads for any length of time and you want to use them, you want them to be functional, well, there are some things you can do with them. Some people use them in their felting. They'll stitch them down onto other pieces of fabric with different stabilizers and different types of material to hold them in place. So that's one option. Another option is just to use this as filler, say for a pincushion or a small little pillow, like a lavender sachet. You can fill it with little lavender petals and just a little of this for more filler. So it does have a purpose as well, and that's completely optional. Now, I had heard that many people will use these and they'll clip them to little small pieces and then leave them outside for the birds to gather to make nests. And that's really a discouraged practice. Even the smaller scraps can be a problem for the birds. They can strangle little bird babies, and sometimes the bright and beautiful colors can attract predators to their nest, whereas if they took materials from nature, they'd be more camouflaged. So I don't recommend that. So I think it's a precious thought that you want to do that. I just don't see how that really plays out very well. But again, that's up to you. Now I'll show you how I save my little threadlings. So this is typically how ORTs are found. They're just the excess thread that's within your needle when you finish a project. Now sometimes you have enough thread within your needle that you just leave it on your needle like I do here because I can still get a good number of stitches out of it. And other times, if I have some left over, I can take it and put it on a spool itself. Just like this. And that's another way to save your threads, particularly the longer ones. But if you have just a small thread, which it really doesn't give you a lot to work with, it's a great way to gather your threadlings or your ORTs in a jar. And there's no denying that they look beautiful in a jar that you can see all the different colors, just like this. Now, I keep many ORT jars because I do my stitching in different areas. If I'm sitting in a chair doing some stitching in one room, I'll take my little ORT jar with me. From my studio, I have my larger galvanized bucket, and it is quite beautiful. Now, there are some things you can do with the ORTs, the leftover threadlings as well. So I spoke about how the leftover orts, particularly in mass, would make a lovely stuffing for a pin cushion. But you can also take them, kind of just roll them together gently, and then tack them down. And with a few stitches of matching thread, they become a textured element on your piece. Now over here, I sorted my orts and made colors of the rainbow, and I just stitched them down accordingly. And you don't have to sort them. That's just one option you can use if you'd like to do that for your orts. So that's how I save my orts, my threadlings, in little jars around my studio. I'll either have them in a full jar, once there's enough of them to make it full, or I'll just keep it in little containers as I go. If I'm going to stitch in a different area around my home, I'll just take a small little cup with me, even an empty yogurt container. So then I have a question for you. Do you use an ORT jar? And what do you use to hold your little threadlings? If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for joining me today.